All right, everyone, welcome along to another episode of Martin's World. Guys, before I go into introducing today's guest, I just want to remind you that if you want to support this show, support the fight for cannabis legalisation in Ireland, you can sign up to the patreon.com/Martin's World, or you can also make a donation in the form of Bitcoin through the link found on martinsworld.ie. All of the funds, guys, will be used to establish a cannabis activist hub so we can bring together the cannabis activists in Cork so we can better fight for cannabis legalisation across Ireland. So guys, today's guest is none other than JP O'Brien from Little Collins. I was delighted to have him on the show. We get to chat all about his business, about the cannabis he sells, and about the bloody raids that he had to go through. So yeah, I've been trying to get JP on for a while, so delighted to finally get this one out to you guys. So I hope you enjoy it, guys. So without further ado, I give you JP O'Brien. JP, thanks very much for taking the time out of what I'd imagine is a very busy day for yourself. So welcome along to Martin's World, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you on here. We've covered your stories, I suppose, your journey over the last couple of months. I became first aware of Little Collins back when you were first raided, which was May of last year.
Yeah.
But I suppose before we get into all this, if you could just tell me a little bit about yourself and Little Collins. How did the two come together?
Yeah, great. Well, first of all, Martin, thanks for having us on. We've been aware of you, mate, for a long time, both myself and Ida. I reckon it wouldn't have been long after we got to Ireland in the middle of 2018 that we saw your little logo, the little man, little Martin's. It's kind of like a superhero or something, and he's got a cape.
Yeah.
And so we were like, who's this dude? He's running around trying to legalize cannabis. Does he wear a cape, or is that just in his logo? That might have been a conversation that we had. But
Yeah. Well, I actually have a cape. If you were wondering.
Next episode. But but mate, we, in all seriousness, we respect what you do, and you tell it straight and you tell it honestly, and we've got your back 100%. So we just wanted to say that.
Appreciate it.
And yeah, so it's good to be here. And look, the Little Collins story came about. So it's a bit of a, not a long one, but I may as well put a bit of it down now while we're here. So I'm Australian. So myself and my wife, Ida, who's Irish, we own Little Collins 50-50, right? And so Ida would have moved to Australia when she was about 21. And she's a chef. She opened, a few years later, she sort of worked up and opened a cafe down there. By the time we left Australia in 2018, she'd left the cafe scene and she was a personal trainer in gyms, that sort of thing. I met her down in Melbourne. I'm from Melbourne myself. I was working away. I used to do kind of videos and TV and editing and producing, this sort of stuff. And I did that for a long time, mate. I did that for about 10 years. And I met Ida sort of towards the end of that journey. And we ended up having a child. And in August 2018, after much research, we moved to Ireland, moved back home for Ida to Ireland, and opened Little Collins, with the intention of, doing what we're doing. We didn't quite see the sort of trouble coming down the line. We knew there'd be a few speed humps, but we didn't know they'd be buses. And yeah, essentially kind of that's how we got together. But it's a funny one because I guess you can't begin our story without recognizing failure. And I certainly can't begin my own story personally. I'm 41 years old now without recognizing a whole series of failures. And in my mind, a failure is just a learning curve. It's just a practice run. And my sort of previous career, look, it had gone pretty well. I was always very idealistic. I thought I was going to be some famous filmmaker. That was never going to happen, ever. It was just, I went to promotions and did all right. But we decided in 2018, we researched cannabis. We obviously had a big connection to over here. And in Australia, I've got to say that the laws around cannabis are much more tightly wound than they are here. Australia, you might not know, has a kind of larrikin, laid back kind of reputation, but it is the most tightly wound country you've ever seen. So listen, we moved here to do this and took off from there. We're both sort of vegans. And the lucky thing for us is that the business and Little Collins and what Little Collins is trying to do. And from day one, we've always said, we don't really don't mind what other people do. We don't like to judge people. We like to just take people as they come. We exist to give people a choice. We believe that people deserve the choice to either go to the chemist and get a ibuprofen or a Panadol or whatever it might be, or come to a shop like ours and get a natural variation with a similar sort of goal in mind. That's all. We think they should live together. And the lucky thing for us was the ethos of Little Collins kind of married nicely with our own personal backgrounds, ethos, and whatever skills we might have had. And in that way, it's been a fortuitous kind of marriage of those things, and it's come together quite nicely for us. And we're really wrapped with how it's going, and most of all, we're wrapped with how the Irish public is responding to the choice that Little Collins and many other retailers, hemp retailers around Ireland, I can list them all if we want, many other hemp retailers around Ireland give them. And that choice is important, and we're obviously at a very sort of critical juncture in the cannabis movement at the moment in Ireland. And yeah, I guess that's sort of the wind up there.
Okay, yeah, and the name itself then is Little Collins. I've kind of had discussions with friends about this, that it's a very well thought out name, because I suppose you said yourself you didn't really think that you were going to bump into the troubles that you kind of did, but as it comes down, it's perceived so nicely. It's like Little Collins. This is what the cannabis industry is, or what it could offer to the community through these CBD flower dispensaries. An opportunity, an alternative, I suppose, where people can go in and get cannabis. But currently, people aren't really afforded that. At least the government don't want to afford us that opportunity. But the name Little Collins, is that anything to do with the international Little Collins, or is this completely separate to that? Because I seen one earlier in Amsterdam, and I think there's one in New York as well.
Yeah. No, it's not. I think the guy in New York, I think he's an Aussie as well.
Okay.
I think he's doing like smashed avo for $30 a plate or something ridiculous like that. But good on him. But no, it's a street in Melbourne, Little Collins. So what you've got in Melbourne, right? Yeah. So we spent a lot of time I worked in that as a city, but what you've got in Melbourne is they made they made it in grids. So basically horizontal and vertical grids is the way they did the streetscape. So you've got, the way you remember it, it goes King William, Queen Elizabeth, right? Because of the British people naming the streets. And then you've got Collins, Little Collins, Burke, Little Burke, Flinders, Little Flinders, that sort of thing. So we love Little Collins because we went to a hotel one time at the start when we were dating, and we had a good time there. And we had a lovely night. It was Valentine's Day. And we're looking for an Australian sort of tinge to the name. So there you go.
Lovely. Yeah, no, that's a lovely story, actually, in fairness, and at least the name comes with a nice memory there for yourselves. That's great. I suppose, given everything that's happened, and before we even get into all of that, do you have any regrets now with the decisions you've made? Would you have changed anything? Would you have stayed in Australia, or would you have not changed a thing?
That's a really good question, actually, Martin. No regrets.
Excellent.
Yeah, zero is the short answer. The sort of extended answer to that is, look, I guess, you're sort of aware that there's going to be issues, but you're not aware how long and deep they're going to go. In the back of my head, I had it that, all right, we're probably going to get raided once. And then, but in my naive sort of head, it was like, but once we get raided once, that'll all be over, because either we'll get shut down or we'll be able to sell it again. I didn't consider that there would be this 24-month plus prolonged extended limbo, basically, where you're living kind of day to day waiting for the next raid, because that to me is, obviously reeks of incompetence, but also an inability of kind of a government to do their job, basically. And so we didn't see that coming, but certainly no regrets. And regrets really are clinging on to the past. I think in order to really do something properly, you need to kind of really live in the narrative of the present. And for me, moving from Australia and literally knowing no one here, and look, I wasn't a person who had a massive circle of friends back home. I had some close mates and obviously my family, but it's not, it's sort of, regrets not something that you can ever have, I don't think. Regret is kind of like a feeling, but if you're going to get serious, just leave it behind and move on.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's I suppose that the next question I would have for you there is that in around the name again of Little Collins, it's you have CBD dispensary in there all. Now, was there any particular reason were you just using the American kind of branding there of the dispensary type of model? Or was there other kind of implications there, as in when you look up dispensary, it's to do with dispensing medications, and also it talks about dental practices in there as well. But did you see any maybe problems arising there out of that, having yourselves called a dispensary?
Yeah, I mean, two parts to that. A, it's funny you mentioned that because the landlord of this building that I'm sitting here, this is the Galway shop here. He's a great bloke. He's a solicitor. And when we were doing the lease a couple of years ago, he brought it up. He said, I'm no marketing guy, but are you sure you want to call this a dispensary? And we were just like, yeah, look, it sounds better than, for us, it was just a name. You know, we are dispensing. I guess the part two, just to finish, is when we were researching the scene over here, I ended up looking at California a lot as well, and the scene there. And you've got some amazing businesses over in cannabis businesses in California. You've got very progressive, forward-thinking cannabis businesses. And not only that, you've got a bunch of money that's spending money on back-end tech and servers to have these delivery services. I can't quite remember the name of the one that I was looking at a lot, but these huge delivery services basically where you can be anywhere in California. You jump on your phone, you've got, you know, pot to trot, it's there 30 minutes later sort of thing. So that for us was inspirational. And so we really came with, in terms of the design and the look and the feel and the style of Little Collins, there was certainly that sort of influence as well. So I think that's probably where the dispensary came through. And then we were just kind of going with what we like from home. And we like little places that, you know, a little hole in the wall where you can go and get a little something to eat, a really good coffee, and in this case, some cannabis.
Excellent, yeah. And then that, I suppose, when you started up in the Galway area, how were you received by the locals? Because I'd imagine you're filling what would have been otherwise a vacant unit, given the current state of Ireland's economics. Even before this whole coronavirus, like we were kind of facing a recession of sorts. It was coming. But were you received well? Were the Galwayans, I don't know what they call themselves up there, were they happy with you?
They weren't too bad. They weren't too bad. I don't know what they call them either, but
Galwegians?
Galwegians, that's it, Galwegians. But listen, just down the road from here, we've got literally about 400 meters down that way is NUIG. And I think there's about 18,000 students that, well, let's say used to go to NUIG. And that's a good thing for a cannabis shop to have a university nearby, because that you're going to get naturally a lot of goodwill from that crowd. Secondly, a common story when we first opened in Galway, Martin, and we opened on November 22nd, 2018, is people would come in, and I don't know if you've ever been to Galway, but they'd come in and there's a lot of kind of muso types, and that's a cliche, sorry Galway people, but people would come in and they'd say, oh, listen, you picked a great spot for it, mate. Because I think Galway people in particular, there's certainly an element here that is cannabis friendly. Let's put it that way.
Excellent. Yeah, we were up there. SSDP back in the day held a national conference in the NUIG up in Galway. So certainly there is a lot of students out there campaigning for changing of drug policies. So there's definitely an audience of people, a population of consumers, if you will, who certainly would benefit off of your products, because it gives them an alternative to some of the higher strength cannabis out there, which isn't really bad for them. But I suppose if you want to be getting your college work done, then maybe having some of your Leonard's Haze, or is it Leonard's Kush? That would,
Leonard's Amnesia. No, I'm glad you said that actually, mate, because that higher strength THC stuff, that can be a killer. So again, I'm 41. I didn't use cannabis my entire adult life. So when I was 15, 16, I would have first tried cannabis in high school, right, back in Australia. And I was probably young, probably about 14, 15. And to be honest, I was small in physical stature. I was extremely shy. And I was probably frightened to death of this stuff because it was illegal. And anyway, had some with some friends. And for me, it definitely wasn't for me because I was an introspective child, and it turned, the spotlight was, or when you're a teenager, you're already wondering so many new things about yourself. And then cannabis just turned it inwards. And it's like, I really don't want to look inwards right now. I was too young for it, And so I just left it alone. But the thing is about that cannabis, looking back now, is that stuff was nowhere near suitable for someone my age. Someone, in their late teens, early 20s shouldn't be having high THC cannabis. Now I'm generalizing, and I'm talking about adult use, regulated retail. I'm talking about just sort of everyday things. And for me, that was a learning experience, because when I tried CBD, it was a game changer, because suddenly I could use this product and not, it would help me. It would really help me. And to me, it was almost like the difference between, an apple and an orange. So using CBD nowadays, and whether it be CBD and THC or CBD, CBG, whatever it is, using that nowadays for me is a totally different perception and experience to what it was as a teenager. And it's 100% better. And for me, what you're looking at there is, that's the only that's my real world example of prohibition cannabis versus cannabis that's beginning to be regulated. And excuse my dodgy hand, but and to me, that's a big difference, because with regulation, you can mold or fit a product, and you can put your head around it. I was buying buds off someone from the back of his skateboard when I was 15, and the stuff's probably 30% THC. It's just no good. It's mindless stuff. So I don't know how I got onto that, but there you go.
Well, you're right, I suppose, in respect of that, that currently the biggest danger there to the young kids, as they say, and at least the literature reflects that high strength THC is a danger to the young minds. But I suppose in respect of that, then the best thing that we could do is actually control and regulate it. Maybe, I don't know how interested a premises such as your own would be for facilitating this, but I like to use your own store as a shining example of what the cannabis industry could be if we were just responsible adults about it, and rather than having this childish approach where it's like, no, don't do that cannabis and we're going to prohibit it, and thereby actually making it easier for the young kids to get this high strength stuff. At least if, I don't know, we slap an age limit on it, treat it like alcohol and tobacco, and educate the consumer, then me as an 18-year-old, I can walk in somewhere with my ID and make a decision. Do I want the high THC stuff or do I want the low THC stuff? And at least I'm properly informed then as to what the repercussions of that decision might be.
Exactly.
So I suppose in that, would you be open to that then, if the government was to move the Misuse of Drugs Act to allow stores such as yours to sell cannabis? Would you facilitate that then? Would you have no problem with expanding the range of Little Collins flower offering?
Are you talking in kind of a full strength regulation mode?
Yeah, I suppose if the barrier was to be removed, to
100%, of course, yeah, 100%. And to be honest, we'd go further than that, Martin, and saw something this morning in the UK, an article about a so-called cannabis minister. I mean, why can't the government start looking at things like that? Why can't there be a cannabis minister, a minister for the future regulation of cannabis in Ireland? Why can't there be a working group? Why can't they take it seriously and treat the plant like what it is, which is basically an extremely valuable crop for both the economy, the people, and the environment of this country? Don't treat it like it's something bad. Don't sort of block access to it at all fucking costs. Don't be, opaque about your communication. Don't sort of do deals with overseas companies. Yeah. Just be grown up and just do it here, because there's 4 million people here that need it, and there's an environment here that needs it. So, that sort of stuff really frustrates us. And
I think 100% it was important in that there though is that Gino Kenny's bill actually in 2016, when he was putting forward his bill for medicinal cannabis access, it included in establishing, I think it was called the Ministry of Cannabis or something like that, a cannabis minister of sorts. But I think it is important because currently the people who are overseeing, which is now replacing Gino's bill, the medicinal cannabis access program, None of them have any ideas to cannabis. They're all staunch prohibitionists, lifelong reefer madness believers. And we're not going to make any progress, I think. So I would definitely agree with you there. We do need to have maybe a position opened up within government, a minister for cannabis, if you will, or, because even our current minister for drugs, he said when he took up the role, this guy, Frank Fian, that he knows nothing about drug policy and that he's going to learn as he goes. And this is the height of negligence. And of course, it's to be expected, I suppose, from the Irish government.
But I mean, politics shouldn't be, a merry-go-round that with no doors, that only certain people can sit on the horses and us poor schmucks get to vote who changes horses every 2 months or 2 years. Sorry. It shouldn't be like that. It should. I mean, there's so much broken. It's not funny, really. Let's be honest. But we're talking about cannabis, and it's just, I mean, where do you go? How do you get through the brick wall? I think the current strategy that everyone's adopting is good, and that is as much exposure as possible. And really, as we say all the time, long term, the biggest thing is education, as you've highlighted, because there is just unfortunately a lack of education, and it's nobody's fault. And we're never ones to point fingers, and we're not. I just need to say we're not anti anything. Cannabis is used terrifically well, augmenting Western medicine, and pharmaceutical cannabis can be terrific. Now, if anyone out there is listening, you know who you are. There you go. I'll say it again. Pharmaceutical cannabis can be terrific, but natural cannabis is terrific as well, right? That's the thing. It's not binary. So, the way forward at the moment is exposure, and then long term it's education. But the people that are sort of on the reefer madness thing, it's not their fault. That's upbringing. That's nurture. But what is their fault, or what they could do better, so to speak, is potentially people like, as you mentioned, Frank Fian, is you can update your opinions, Martin. You don't have to stay on the same chopping block your whole life. You can, the same horse, you can reevaluate your opinions. And to be quite frank, in the modern world, the pace that the modern world moves with technology these days, you have to update your opinion, because the world in 2021 is markedly different from the world in 2014. And that's only 7 years. Yeah. Simple as that.
No, you're dead right there. I suppose get into your own business and stuff like that, and your customer base. Kind of what age range would your customers be? I'd imagine it starts at 18, is it?
Yeah. So it starts at 18. And yeah, we don't serve really any CBD products except maybe sort of some take-home tea for under 18s. And then, mate, it goes up. We have a huge demographic over 50. A huge over 50 demographic in terms of people seeking relief from arthritis and things like that. And yeah, it's across the board. We have a really strong female demographic. We like to sort of foster both in terms of our, phone conversations, but more importantly in the shop, we like to foster the sort of energy or space where people can come in. There's decent music on. There'll never be crap music. It'll always be decent music. Normal music, not like just crap. And we like to just have the sort of space where people can just open up a bit. And just talk about what they're looking for. And so when Ida and I first opened, I would regularly talk about my experiences with CBD and my experiences with anxiety. My experience is the fact I'm a non-drinker, and Ida is as well, and for different reasons. But and that harkens back to the thing, being a teenager. And so being a teenager and getting scared of cannabis, when you get scared off something, because it's illegal and scary, you tend to turn to something else, and you turn to what is socially validated or validated by, the seniors of society. And what is that? That's alcohol and cigarettes. So instead of the marijuana, as it's called in high school, you're like, well, I can't have that, and it's a bit scary, and it makes me kind of a bit edgy. So I'm just going to drink as much as possible. And that is not good. And it takes a lot to sort of come out of that culture then as well. And that's something I had to do. And that's something I talk openly with people about. And, my journey really with almost that led to this day started in 2012, 2013, when I woke up in a hospital bed after having a seizure after having drunk too much. And I was like, well, something has to change.
Yeah.
I need to get my act together. And this is while I'm holding down, well, I left my full-time job and I was working for myself. So I was holding down a career, but I was just so messed up in the head that I was, treating my body just shockingly. And you have to hit real lows. And I hit real lows and, I've hit failure to start recognizing what's going on and pulling yourself out of it and realizing why you're doing A, B, and C. And cannabis and alcohol come into that story a lot for me, and anxiety and this sort of things. And I'm not afraid to talk about any of that. And I'm not afraid to, we don't really pull too many punches at Little Collins. We will tell you the truth. We're not afraid to tell the truth, and we're not afraid for people to tell us what they think of us either. Don't care. So, so we want to foster that space where people can then come in turn and say, listen, I've just been struggling with X, Y, or Z. What do you think? And then it's not like, oh my God, we have to start whispering or go into the corner. Just have a nice chat. We just have a nice chat and we talk about can of butter and we talk about buds and oil and we maybe get a cup of tea and 10, 15 minutes later, happy days. They may or may not have bought anything. It doesn't matter at all. We'll never try and sell anything to someone because that's just not us. And that's the kind of space we want. And we think that's important for, for a product like this.
Yeah. And at the moment, how many staff do Little Collins have across the two stores?
We've got about 20, 25 staff all up,
okay.
In honesty.
That's so we've got the couriers, is it?
Yeah, so we've got the two stores, Galway and Kilkenny Martin. Then we've got probably 3 offices around the country. Can't tell you where they are, but and
all good.
And of course the courier network. So we've got a ton of drivers and about 5 or 6 vans on the road.
Okay, so you've how many did you say? 25 was it in total?
It's over 20. Yeah, we counted it the other day. It's over 20. Yeah.
Excellent. Like that's happy days. And if there was multiple stores like this around Ireland, so there's the job opportunities ever increasing. But people are afraid to get involved in this industry because they see how the likes of yourselves are getting treated. And I suppose expansion, although you did expand into Kilkenny recently, it's probably made difficult because of these bloody blockages you're facing along the way.
Yeah, that's it. And you're right. They scare off people. Like you're not. I mean, what sort of business model is getting rated every 6 months? That's not really. You don't get taught that one in business school. So it definitely scares people off. But what you're going to see when that misuse of drugs gets amended, Martin, is you're going to see the industry explode. It's as simple as that.
I look forward to that. Yeah, and in that, I suppose we kind of mentioned a bit about fair and the raids there, but do you think there's any real fair within the hemp industry in Ireland? Because we have the Irish Industrial Hemp Association. Do you think there's a fair there with them to talk about cannabis and about talking about the need for kind of having it removed from the Misuse of Drugs Act, or do you think they're happy just to battle away for maybe just the slight movement of, I don't know, the THC percentage so they can have access to better varieties? Do you think they're happy with that fight, or do you think they're willing or
yeah? Is that the Industrial Hemp Association you said?
Yeah, is it IHA? I think, yeah.
Yeah, those. Yeah, I couldn't speak for them. Are they in court as well? Are they?
No, apologies. I actually mistakenly thought that you were a member of theirs.
No, the HFI. Sorry, got you. The HFI.
Hemp Federation, Ireland. That's
our one. Yeah, the IHA. I think that's one of Hampshire's many arms. But
okay, yeah.
But yeah, the HFI. They're Chris Allen. G'day, Chris. How are you? She is strongly of the opinion that the amendment will go through, and so is the legal team.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, there's really no way that it can't.
Yeah. I suppose what I was getting at really is that, like, hemp, traditionally, when we think about hemp, it was to do with cannabis, cloth, seed, and oil. Realistically, what we're talking about here now in CBD, CBG, and all these other cannabinoids is we're talking about the entirety of the cannabis plant. We're not just talking about the industrial fiber usages, which is what the hemp term was coined up for, to deal with that. So like
Yeah.
to have a Hemp Federation Ireland, would you think that maybe they need to rebrand as the Cannabis Federation Ireland now, and just to
Yeah.
destigmatize the plant? Because I think like
Mm.
is it still stigmatizing like to talk about it in terms of hemp and CBD
Yeah.
flowers and
No, I gotcha. I gotcha. Thanks, Martin.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. And what you'll find with the HFI is she and that organisation, Chris Allen and Jim McDonald from Hemp Company Dublin, have the history there with the HFI. And it wouldn't be my place to make comment on that.
Yeah.
They've been very good to us. But what I'm trying to say is they're entwined with a 25-year history of hemp. I totally hear what you're saying, but I just don't know the context enough to be able to comment. And the background enough because I'm such a new fish. But
even with say your own website, I suppose, like if you were to use hemp flowers, I think, or is it a hemp kitchen? I think it's the one around the shake. But if you were to call that like cannabis leftovers or CBD smalls, if you were to call them cannabis smalls, like do you think that would bring even more unwarranted attention? Like, are you using hemp to try to not bring so much attention? Like, cannabis is a bit
initially,
of a
yeah, 100%. Yeah, initially you do. Yeah, you use hemp to try and dance around it. And that's why recently, maybe in the last few months, I think we've started saying sort of hemp cannabis in a lot of discourse, especially Twitter. And no, you're dead right. And it is baby steps though. And certainly in terms of, look, in terms of now, I couldn't care what we put on the website. I could put a picture of a big blunt on there. We've been rated that many times. It doesn't matter. So, it's moving in one direction now, but we do just need to be careful not to conflate or confuse the issue for people who are less knowledgeable or less kind of in the scene than us.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? For the average Joes, we want to keep it pretty. You've got to keep it pretty simple because it is a bit confusing. All this hemp, cannabis, sativa, indica, it does people's heads in a little bit. But I guess one point is, in terms of the misuse of drugs, what do you think will happen, Martin, if they do amend it and 0.2 or 0.3 is written in, and it's the whole plant, which is what we think is going to happen? What happens then? Like, is that the Trojan horse?
I think they open Pandora's box at that point for them, because how in the name of God's name will they ever regulate that? Like, do we have a hemp inspector going out taking inspections of everybody's hemp crop? But what does that do as well, say, for someone like myself, if it's removed from the Misuse of Drugs Act, surely I wouldn't be required a license any longer to be able to grow my own CBD hemp out my own backyard. And so I wonder, would it open the door there then as well to personal production of CBD for people at home? Because I think
it's just a food. It's not a license. It's not nothing. It's just a food product. Yeah. No, that's an interesting question, because we agree, and it's definitely a bit of Trojan horse there, because I can guarantee you now one thing, just forget about it. When it gets done, the industry will explode. You'll have shops like ours or shops like other models of hemp retailers all over the country, number one, within 24 months. So number two, you're going to have half the over 18s in the country walking around with this cannabis in their pocket that's legal, but it's not full strength cannabis, so to speak. What on earth are the Guard going to do then? They're already frustrated about it. The reason they raided us here in Galway in December, they showed us the warrants, and the uniformed Garda had organised it, and she raided us because they'd been picking up too many kids on the street, whatever, adults on the street, guys with cannabis, and they'd just say, as you would, I got it at Little Collins. Of course you're going to say that. So, and they're like, well, what do I do? So what did they do? They can raid us again. So, but yeah, I think a situation where basically what you're looking at is one form of the plant gets totally legalized, and for all intents and purposes, the only difference between this form and this form is the efficacy or the effect. The enforceable, to enforce that situation is very difficult. Very difficult. So in our opinion, they're going to delay this High Court thing as much as possible, but there's only so much delaying they can do, to be frank, because people are getting pretty impatient.
Yeah, well, I think you have a right to an expedient trial under the European Convention of Human Rights. So certainly they need to be dealing with this sooner rather than later, because as you said, it's nearing, or if it's already maybe gone over 2 years now since you were raided. So it's appalling that they're treating you like this. Like, I suppose let's get into the raid and what happened there. The very first one happened back in May 2019.
Yeah,
That was a controlled delivery that was executed that day as well, if memory serves correct. Am I right?
that's it. Yep.
So,
Controlled delivery. Yeah, at the
yeah, so if
home.
you want to pick up there, maybe as the
Yeah,
kind of how
yeah,
that happened.
yeah, for sure. First of all, before we go into it, I just want to say the names of a few other businesses that have been harshly dealt with. First of all, Jim Puff and stuff, Blooms in Waterford. You've got obviously Relief out in Clonmel. You've got Nature by Nurture more recently, and a couple of those other guys on Twitter. And there's just been a ton of them. So it's certainly not just us. Funky Skunk, of course, and the whole of Cork. Like, we just hear horror stories about the guard in Cork. But yeah, so just to get that out of the way, May 2019, controlled delivery on our home. I was in Portugal. Ida was here. And I mean, she's been a while, but since I've gone through it. But yeah, basically there was no one got taken to the police stations. They just raided our shop and our home. They really liked the full raid, underwear drawer, the whole thing. But she stayed clear of it. She basically just went to a hotel with our child, and I was in Portugal advising her to stay away from the police because they wanted to take her in. And she had an 2-year-old child with her. So that happened. And then, that took a long time to recover from. That took months and months to recover from. It was a big raid. They took a lot of stock, and it was the first one, and we were shocked and whatnot. But I think it was a few days later we decided, well, stuff it. We've got to speak out. We're not going to say nothing. We had kind of been keeping our mouths shut a bit prior to that, because we thought, oh, look, we're playing it right. We're saying the right things as a food product. We don't mention cannabis here, there, and everywhere. But that didn't matter. So it took months to get back up on our feet. And then essentially then what happened was customs just started taking a lot of products incoming. So that's been a constant kind of evolution of basically, and it's almost like and it's quite fun because, maybe in a normal business, if you're ordering in tomatoes, or say if you're ordering oranges from Spain, they're going to come, that customs aren't going to pinch one, right? Because they're legal. But with this, it's just that extra element of, all right, so I'm going to order in my buds, but now I need to make sure this is done right. And so it's a bit of fun in that way. But so then they kept doing all the seizures, and then more raids. There was the one in December here. There was obviously been Kilkenny, and there was all the other stuff in between. Yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought.
Yeah, no, you're grand. And how were the Gardaí towards you throughout all this? Like, despite them wanting to put you in handcuffs and stuff, like, were they respectful towards you at least?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, yeah, to be honest.
Or did you feel like you were criminals, like that you were scum? Like,
well, look, the thing is, it's a tough one because we are getting treated like shit, but it's hard. It's just a hard one, that, Martin, because there's a few guard that act like dickheads, to be honest. And let's be honest, they do. And I had a couple of uniformed guards out the front of the Kilkenny store just the other week when we reopened.
yeah.
And we called their bluff, by the way. They didn't come down, so I had how much am I prepared to piss them off right now? I had a guard on the phone saying, basically, if you don't close your Kilkenny store, we're going to come back. We've got a 30-day warrant. We're going to come back and take it all, and we're going to make you close. And I sort of said to him, well, sir, no, you're not. we're going to stay open. And then politely hung up the phone. And then they didn't come back, Martin. So their bluff has been called, because really there's only two reasons they could shut a shop. One is if you've got rotten food and rats. We don't have that. Two is if you're totally in breach of COVID. We aren't that. So boom, you can't shut our store. So in terms of that, they've been all right, but it doesn't matter because when that order comes down from Dublin, they do their job and they come in and most of them are okay, but there's always a few snide ones that are basically cannabis haters. And we had a couple of uniformed guard out the front of Kilkenny the other day that were definitely cannabis haters. So I'm not going to say what they did, but they said some really inappropriate things to my customers. And quite frankly, these young boys in their little shiny suits and badges don't even deserve to be doing that job if they have that sort of attitude, because it was pathetic, it was immature, and they didn't say it to my face, mate, because I was taller than them and standing there, and they might have been a bit intimidated. So they followed my customers down the road and said some smart ass remarks to them. I encourage those two guards to come back and see me actually in Kilkenny and say it to my face.
And were the customers hassled any further outside of that? It was just a bit of a kind of
on that day, but they followed him a couple of 100 meters around the corner and just said some rubbish remarks. And we found out about it the next day from two different sources. Yeah. I was still in Kilkenny and I found out about it from the customers. My wife back here in Galway found out about it online. And yeah, that was that. So that, to be honest, that's my rant, because we know that these guys that are coming and doing the seizures, like they're doing their job, and that's Dublin. That's the law, and yeah. Get over that. But two little punks in their uniforms doing that say it to my customers and not me.
Yeah.
You know, again, that's
this is the problem with the Misuse of Drugs Act. Basically, it empowers these type of people, these individuals, like, as not all Gardaí are perfect, and you know, they're going to abuse their powers. And the way in which they do it, you know, it's, as you said, they wouldn't speak up to you because they were intimidated by you, but they seen, I don't know, two maybe college students from NUIG leaving, and they were like, oh, let's go over and give them a bit of a telling off because they're more intimidable. And that's what some of these Gardaí, when they get the uniform on, they are sent out, they almost do go on power trips. And I hate the fact that the Misuse of Drugs Act allows them, it enables that, it allows them to pick, and so many people, a lot of my friends, like over the road, they wouldn't have as much confidence maybe to speak up for themselves, but I could see it out when they get stopped by the guards. It's so easy for them to be intimidated by the uniform, by the authority that comes with it. You know, it is very intimidating. But I suppose,
fairness too, Martin, just to finish there, in fairness, there would be people higher up in the Garda Síochána organisation that would feel as peeved about that as we would, because there are good people in that organisation, and there's intelligent people that would be like, what are these punks doing? Just to kind of weigh that out. But yeah, it's not cool, but look, it happens all over the world. The Australian police, they make mini-series about them. That's how corrupt they were. So,
and have any of our Gardaí ever kind of pulled you aside and said, like, oh, sorry about this, geez, I have to do this, like?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, the first head of drugs up here, what was his name? Peter McGuinness. He's older fella. He's retired. That's how long this has been going on. He's gone. He's probably in Hawaii by now. He was a good bloke. And I said to him, Peter, what is going on? And I looked him in the eye and shook his hand. He was like, well, mate, you know, I'm pretty sure you're aware we don't want to be dealing with this either. And it's going to come down to EU law versus Irish law. This was 2 years ago. And he was right. Simple as that. And I said, Peter, you trust us, don't you? He said, of course we do. I can tell you're just a family bloke trying to run a business. And yeah, so they're 100%. You're right there.
No, fair enough. And do you, I suppose you've kind of already acknowledged this question, actually, that you do live in fear, I suppose, still, even though you called their bluff recently, I suppose that you were probably worried, I suppose, like, I suppose you're still kind of maybe what they would call curtain twitching, checking the curtains, make sure the guards aren't outside.
Yeah, well, 100%. Yeah. Well, since the first raid, it's been a 7-day-a-week curtain twitch, because we open 7 days a week, and when you're being raided once, you're always expecting the next one. So that's just an everyday reality. But in terms of Kilkenny, maybe after they see this, they might change their minds and come back down. But they seem to have calmed down, and you would hope it to continue that way, because there's absolutely no reason for what they're doing. I mean, if we were receiving public health complaints, you know, every second week about the product and this, that, and the other, personally, I'd step away. Yeah. I'd step away and say, listen, leave it to the fact is, the product's not dangerous. It's quite the opposite. The Irish public don't need protecting from cannabis. The Irish public actually need cannabis. Simple as that. And you know, anything else is really just kind of mumbo jumbo.
Yeah. And as it kind of unfolded after the first raid and the second, like, was there ever a point where you were almost pushed to breaking, as in you were just
No,
hang up the
no,
hat? You're never
no,
good.
not at
That's
all.
good to hear.
No. You ever heard of that tactic rope a dope?
I've heard, yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, rightio. So it's a boxing tactic, and basically one boxer stays on the ropes for 10 rounds, taking
Yeah,
hits.
that's
Yeah,
that
and
sounds
then
familiar.
2 rounds to go, you just come out and knock them out because they're out of power.
Yeah, yeah, no, I've definitely heard that one all right before in the ring. And in that in the fair, I suppose, and I'm targeting you. You said the first one it hurt you the most, and I suppose you've learned from that in setting up even your courier network now. Is there ever a fair that they actually, I suppose, take away your ability to do the business, like a cease and desist, if you will, being ordered against you?
100%, yeah. So with Kilkenny, the recent drama in Kilkenny, that was as close as it got for us. And
Yeah.
I'll be honest and say it was quite worrying that, our solicitor advised us if they, I'm not even going to go on with that, but yeah, that was worrying because we put a lot to get that store open. We put a lot of us into it it was tough getting that store open.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be good if they did try and shut that down for the business at all.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, Martin, if they did, we're not going away. We just do Galway and then open Dublin. So it's we're not going away.
Good to hear. No,
they cannot break me or Ida. They cannot break Little Collins, and we have we're not going to go broke.
Yeah. Well, I think like your position in Ireland is pretty much well cemented now in this at this stage. Like the cannabis community now are 100% behind Little Collins, given all of the recent unfolding events over the last year or two. So you certainly have the support of the cannabis community there. But
certainly appreciate that in a huge way. And what everyone in the cannabis community needs to know for the people watching this is that it mightn't seem like it, but there are a lot of eyes on what is happening right now on shows like this, on other cannabis, videos, on Twitter, on all the social. There are a lot of eyes in politics watching every move. They can't say anything and they don't say anything, but trust me, they are. Simple as that.
Yeah, well, I think the time is coming, definitely, and the government have to be making a move now. I think if they don't make a move, then it's really up to the people. Given like Gino Kenny's bill now and everything going forward, hopefully later on this year. If the government reject this, I think there's no choice left but for the people to kind of really rise up against them in a peaceful way. But because if we were to do, say, a public referendum currently, I think that's the only way forward after Gino's bill goes forward, if it's to be rejected. Anything else, it's just not good enough, really.
I think once restrictions have cleared up, we could, in terms of the cannabis community, muster a great crowd.
Yeah. Well, I reckon if there wasn't restrictions there, given the last raid in your store, I would imagine you probably would have had an early human shield outside of your store, willing to protect your store from gardai.
It was crazy. And what we could do up in Dublin would be insane. And you're right, we just need to keep the pressure on because there does need to be an answer. People do need to be heard. And but I guess the fact that is missed in a lot of this conversation is how much of a blue sky opportunity there is with Ireland and cannabis, in terms of it really is just a thematic match made in heaven. The color schemes, the fact that Ireland has such a rich agricultural history. Ireland has a rich export history for certain niche products. The blue sky potential of cannabis and Ireland on a national level is huge. You could have the next Guinness in 10 years, and it's, the next Guinness might be called, skunk or amnesia or whatever it might be, gelato, but to not sort of to not recognize this and to basically take the route, which it seems like the government is doing now, giving cannabis to overseas investors to come in and basically kind of monetize it in their own way, is extremely foolish to say the least.
Yeah, it seems like that's definitely the way it's going. That there's a lot of outside companies that are looking at Ireland as an import potential for their products rather than Ireland itself looking at itself as a potential for being its own producer and actually
Leader.
being a leader, for export of the crop. We are the Emerald Isle after all, so we should certainly live up to that name. I
Totally.
suppose on that topic, like your own products and stuff like that, I suppose you've even a difficulty in filling your shelves with Irish cannabis products because there's a better offering of flower outside of Ireland, I would imagine.
100%, yeah. So what you got when the European Union did this 0.3, 0.2% THC, the way we see it is a grassroots cannabis industry sprung up, and it's a stick in the mud for the plans they had. And essentially, in terms of the actual product and your question, it's a stick in the mud, we believe, for the processes that the Irish government has put in place for the plant in the last two and a half years, because this industry, this 0.2, 0.3, 0.5 in Italy, this industry is new. They didn't see it coming. So anyway, the buds, like, so say we've got Brendan Kearney up here in Galway. He's got maybe 20 acres only just down the road. And for example, he had those acres full of hemp last year, and couldn't sell an ounce of it because of the red tape on the other end. You've got Ed down in Wicklow, and you've got a number of people growing, but the flower scene isn't there now. No chance. So yeah, it's all imported. Countries like, there's a few countries, mainland Europe, that are well ahead.
Yeah.
And it also comes down to the seeds and this sort of thing.
Okay, cool. And I suppose your own products then, the cannabis, have you met the growers, or have you been out to the farm?
I haven't. We've got to go. We're due to go. As soon as it eases up, we're actually forming a partnership with our main supplier as we speak. We've only ever used 2 bud suppliers, and they are basically one and the same now anyway. So, but we haven't been over there yet, mate, and it is absolutely high on the list. We went to Cannabis in Spain.
Yeah.
Was it Spain or is it
Cannabis?
Yeah, Spanibus. Oh no, Cannafest. Cannafest in the Czech Republic.
That's the Czech Republic, over in Prague.
Yeah, that was great. That's basically like a bunch of massive sheds, kind of 20 minutes out of town, just full of cannabis stuff, and then they've got like the VIP shed with a cloud of smoke around it. But that was great. But we haven't been to see the growers yet. No.
Unfortunately, yeah, I was signed up to go to Cannafest this year, but unfortunately, COVID.
Yeah.
Up in your website, it says your cannabis and stuff is grown organically and things like that. Is that certified then by the
by the growers? Yeah.
By the growers, yeah, through under the EU organic certification, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, the flowers are all indoor grows. Increasingly, they're getting greenhouse grows now. So really, what we find with the outdoor and the greenhouse grows, like, they need to be organic. If they're not organic, something's wrong, in our opinion. And but the indoor ones are a bit trickier. But basically, what we did is we tested for a lot of the metals and pesticides here extensively after we sort of first started with this supplier, and none were found at all over many strains and batches. And that was enough to lead us to go, well, they are kind of growing these indoor buds without any use of A, B, or C. And we've seen a bunch of sort of obviously pics and that of the setups and whatnot. And they really just invest their money in the right lighting, you know what I mean? And the right soil and the right seeds. And the seeds is such a huge thing. And obviously Israel do a lot in that regard, but so that's sort of it. And look, Martin, it's a hard one, but it's the EU organic certificate. And the outdoor hemp we really love. So we use a lot of outdoor hemp for our tea and all this sort of thing, and the outdoor hemp grown under the sun's beautiful. So
Oh, excellent. And your strain names then, I suppose. I seen you had a little competition going on Instagram yesterday there around where did you come up with the name Leonard out of some movie, was it,
Yeah.
or something?
Yeah, Leonard's Amnesia there. Yeah. Did that competition last night. Forgot about it for 3 hours. Got back on. Bang. But wowee. The strain names are just to take the piss a bit, really, because and just to try and be a bit fun and little Australian references as well. Just to keep it interesting, you know. So Port Douglas pineapple, like Port Douglas is a little town up far north Queensland and kind of touristy town, but they've still got a pub there. I lived there for about a year when I was 21, just working in bars and that. And they've still got a pub there called the Iron Bar.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, so Port Douglas, this place, palm trees, you know, super hot all the time. And in the back of the Iron Bar, stinking hot day and night, they still sit around at night and gamble on racing cane toads.
Oh, that's epic.
That's what happens up there. And there's a nude beach down the road and just all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, class. Yeah, no, I was always kind of blown away by the strain names. I always found a bit of crack in them. I think.
Yeah, a bit of crack. That's all it is.
You had a Kerry Kush there and all at one stage, like.
Yeah, Kerry Kush, the kingdom of Kerry.
Excellent. And all of these strains, then you have, if a customer wanted, you would be able to offer them the access to the testing that was done on them.
Yeah, 100%. So at the moment with the testing, we don't test here in Ireland.
Okay.
We only offer supplier COAs at the moment. We stopped third-party testing here in Ireland in February 2020, when the FSAI informed us that the lab we were using was not viable according to current standards. I won't say the lab.
Okay.
When we approached various authorities in the HFI, basically the only lab you could use is the Phoenix Park lab, which is kind of in use by gardai and whatnot. So to be frank, the testing facilities or the infrastructure to batch test in Ireland is non-existent.
Yeah.
We get strains and batches every second week.
Yeah.
We were running a lot of them through the previous lab prior to Feb 2020, when personal phone call, you know, told matter-of-factly those labs will not stand up because of A, B, and C. And that's the state of the legislation. There's not any clear, you know, when like you might sort of start a business, you might go, all right, well, the Lego blocks will be there. Like, okay, where do I get my product tested? Where do I get my insurance? How do I do that? Where do I do A, B, and C? For a lot of that with the cannabis hemp industry right now in Ireland, 90% of that stuff doesn't exist. 90% of those support networks, consistent information, goalposts that don't shift, 95% of that stuff doesn't exist. So certainly in relation to your original question, we will pass along any and all tests from the suppliers to our customers. Yeah. And we will also pass along any and all third-party tests we did prior to February 2020. And at this stage, that's the best we can do.
Yeah. And when you were doing your own third-party testing, was there anything ever came back of concern to you from the test? There was nothing wrong.
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
I suppose that's a good thing anyway, at least. But I suppose currently there is regulations, or I don't know, is it regulations or more guidelines, but within Europe around good agricultural and collecting practices for herbal products that are going to end up in kind of in medicines and finished products. But within that, I suppose in the guidelines, there is that the onus is actually on the producer to ensure that what they've produced meets the specification of the buyer. And then you're only testing it actually to make sure that it's meeting those specifications, not actually to satisfy any kind of, I don't know, kind of arbitrary number.
Yeah, 100%. The onus is on the, we don't have a legal obligation to third-party test anything.
So currently, like what I was saying really is that the self-regulation you impose on yourselves, it kind of only hits you yourselves in the pocket, and you're only doing it out of really the goodness of your heart. You're not even, like, you don't even have to do it essentially, you know, because if
basically, yeah. And then you get told that actually those tests don't mean jack.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm not going to pay him. I'm not going to, literally did one more. I'll give you the mail. So thank you. Just saved a lot of money.
Happy days. Did you see an end in sight for this? Do you think that the next maybe one or two court cases might be the end, or do you think that there's going to be a bit more can kicking ahead for you?
Yeah, that's I don't know. It's due up again. Where are we now? It's due up again next week. It got adjourned last month, so it's hard to say. There's a rumor going around. Have you heard it? That some judge said, I don't know what judge and what case and whatever, but some judge said to someone about a cannabis case in March, I'm going to make this my last case because I want to go out by changing history or something.
Yeah,
Right?
I heard that from the horse's mouth, actually, from the guy
Yeah.
who had it said to him.
What
And
was
yeah, that was to do with the, I suppose, one of the other cases of the other cannabis companies. I don't think I'd be putting, like, I don't know whether I'd be exposing him by saying his name in this, but I can.
No, I know who it was anyway. No, don't do that. But
Yeah, I
look,
won't do that. Yeah.
there's that sort of thing going around.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, on just from our own judicial review, the barrister that's on board is not the sort of barrister that gets on board like a case like this if he thinks he's going to lose. It's as simple as that. He's a senior from Dublin, and he's a winning barrister. And he's also, if you read about his history, for example, I'll just give you an example. This barrister refused Garda to search him on the way into court because it was, it's against whatever it was, the Constitution. So he's a barrister that stands up for human rights sort of thing, for want of a better term, you know what I mean? So, in terms of what's going to happen in the future, it's very, very hard to say, Martin. And, how long's a piece of string? It's been going on 2.5 years now. So you wouldn't be surprised if we're still having this conversation this time next year. You really wouldn't be surprised. And I hate to say that to people. And you never know what can happen. You know, Gino might get his Superman cape on and bust through the wall, and the whole thing could be legal by this time next year. I wouldn't be surprised about that either. The world moves so fast, but we're up against it in terms of deeply ingrained historical stigma. And we're up against it in terms of seemingly agenda-driven misinformation. Yeah. And we're up against it in terms of just, the lack of education. So, but all those things are improving, and we're not going to stop until... I can guarantee you, here's the one thing I can guarantee you, the government would... certain factions in the government do not want this plant legalized, because you know what that does? That costs them a shit ton of money.
Big time, yeah. Now, can I ask your opinion on something? Actually, is in Spain the activists there, they fought for many years for their right to grow, and they obtained that right to grow, and they were able to form what's known as cannabis social clubs, and they kind of operate under a not-for-profit model. If the government, I suppose, were to remove barriers and to allow access to it, what would you think of a model like that for Ireland, where people, say, like myself, yourself, consenting adults who would like to consume THC that's higher than what's available from your shop currently, what would you think of a model like that, where we could form an association, grow cannabis, but profit is not the
Yeah, I understand. So two things. A, I don't know the exact breakdown of the Spanish social club scene, but B, with that, are you talking about pre-full legalization in terms of the social club setup?
Yeah, I suppose pre-legalization, given that the current government are largely ignoring us and following what the Spanish done, it was kind of, we're going to do this and first and ask
we
for
have
permission.
Absolutely nothing against that model. We have absolutely nothing against that model. The plant exists for the people. The plant doesn't exist for the people to make tons of this folding paper stuff that we call money. The plant exists for people to consume it and to get well from it. So any model works. We like the model where you've got two kind of, in terms of regulated retail, like we said in the tweet, two kinds of growers: bigger growers, lots of acres; smaller growers, 2 acres and under, easier license to get. Encourage a micro cannabis industry beneath the larger cannabis industry. Like you see in the beer industries across the world, you've got your large producers, and then you've got your microbreweries. And often the microbreweries become more popular and outgrow the larger producers because they concentrate on quality ingredients, quality processes in terms of how they're creating the product and the finishing and everything. So we'd like to see. We think that, and we've said many times, cannabis is an environmental debate. It should be planted all across Ireland. It's excellent remediation agent. It's a carbon negative crop. All of these sort of things. But there's no reason why people like you and people like me or Owen or anyone shouldn't be able to go, shit, I have got an acre or two, or my mum and dad do. What am I going to do with the next 5 or 10 years of my life? I know how to farm. Why can't people like that start with the proper checks and regulations in place, start growing cannabis? Why can't we have a thriving cannabis industry? Why does making money have to always be centered around, banking and finances and etc? Why can't cannabis be a lucrative and also really wholesome kind of industry for Ireland? It can be, but we just need the right people in charge.
No, you're dead right in that. I would agree with everything you said there, and I think the biggest problem is we don't have the right people in charge currently, but maybe in time to come that will change. But until then, I suppose we are stuck with the current bunch. JP, come here. I've exhausted all my questions. Just kind of looking back over them, I don't have any left. Thanks very much. Unless there's anything else you want to add in or anything else you want to chat about.
Yeah. I've got a question or two for you, Martin.
Go for it.
Are you still using the logo?
Yeah, I still have the logo.
Is it still around?
Yeah, he is indeed.
Do you have that suit?
I do actually. It was a Halloween costume that I had from a good few years ago.
Good one. And the background there, that's Cork City, right?
Yeah.
The background you use on the show?
Yeah, that's the north side of Cork City, where we have the Shandon Bell there that I'm pointing at, and then we have the Northgate Cathedral. Yes,
and then I think that's the hill. I like Cork. There's a few good little coffee shops. There's one called, and I don't know them, but they're called West Coast Roasters or something, West Cork Coffee Roasters in the city. Yep. Beautiful little hole-in-the-wall cafe. Love that sort of stuff. Cork's a brilliant little city, but we were going to open down there, but or we're going to try to, but to be honest, it is the guard down there just scared us off just with all the stories. So no, look, I didn't have too much to mention, mate. I just wanted to say keep it up, and people really respect what you do, and there's a need for people with large kahunas like yourself to get out there and push the envelope. So don't worry, and
thanks.
We'll all get there in the end. And
I suppose
on the day we get there, open invitation for anyone. Myself and Martin will be there. We'll go to the Dáil or Government House, and we'll burn one down.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm well up for that. I look forward to that. Excellent. Thanks again, JP. It's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, we'll do it again. Cool, Martin. Thank you for having me on.
Indeed. And there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed that interview with JP O'Brien. It was an absolute pleasure to have him on and to get to chat with him about his business, about the flowers, the cannabis flowers that he's selling, and about his customers and everything else that we got to chat with too. I would have much rather have got to do that one in person, and I do intend to follow up with him on that invite to have him on the show again in hopefully maybe the not too distant future, where I can actually travel up and have the chat in person, because it should make for a much better quality of a conversation if we're able to do it in person without the kind of technical interference of Zoom there. But nonetheless, guys, there you go. I hope you enjoyed it anyway. As I say, I did enjoy that chat there with JP. And until the next time, guys, stay blazed out there and keep her lit. Much love. Peace.